Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Black Hat. My name is John Ayers. I'm the Chief Strategy Product Officer here at Newspire. And for the next 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to talk about let's go hunting. So again, welcome to everyone. A little bit about who we are. Newspire is a leading managed security service provider here. We're headquartered here in the U.S. One of our biggest focus right now has been really about redefining the cybersecurity experience. Most of you who are on this call, either you're CISOs or you're in some type of security role, know today how hard it is when it comes to managing and monitoring and getting visibility about your network and some of the things you need to go do. A few things that Newspire is doing is really focusing on it's powered by us, but customized for you, which is really important today. And so many things that we're doing and addressing, and so many things that you're doing and addressing, focusing on responding and remediating, and how do I detect. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, but we're really focusing around the challenges around this and how threat hunting really will help address all of these challenges that most of you are dealing with today. One of the biggest things that we hear and often are asked is, how do I get visibility into my network? It is still probably one of the biggest problems we have today, which is finding out what is on my wire, when did it come on my wire, how long has it been there, and what can I do about it? The other biggest thing that we're dealing with in a very, very big way, and most of us are dealing with it with now more than ever due to the COVID-19 situation, is finding the most qualified analysts who've been focusing, who've had keyboard time inside a SOC or had keyboard time in really dealing with security challenges. The issues are related to what do I do around getting visibility, even looking at logs, what can I actually decipher from the logs? The other thing here right now, which is really very prominent today in our challenges, there's nobody really hunting, right? There's no one really looking for the adversary. We'll talk a lot about how we go about threat hunting, what the stages you need to take to really maybe potentially stand up a threat hunting group inside your organization and address that. The other big challenge here is it's been too long to detect. This has been something that's been haunting the cybersecurity space for many years. We were at one point over 230 days of dwell time. While it has gotten better, there's still a biggest problem here is still detecting that dwell time, detecting when that person's there or that hacker or that adversary is inside your environment, even to the point when you've scheduled a pen test. Still today, even with pen tests being turned on to help you harden your environment, look for those holes, look for those challenges. We're not detecting that. Nor are we investigating that. So there's a lot of assumptions that are taking place as relate to detecting and investigating. So before we get into threat hunting, the big thing that I've always been a big fan of is understanding what is a threat. And this is an important aspect before you start going hunting, or even before you do anything as it relates to hardening your environment or addressing your cybersecurity concerns, is really understanding what is a threat. And a threat is really broken up into 4 different buckets. There has to be intent, right? The goal here is what does the adversary really want to try to accomplish? And we know right now a lot of these things are really financially motivated. But the other pieces there are what we're seeing today is publicity. The other is hacktivism, the ability to go out and do something to prove a point. So there has to be intent. And sometimes, and to be honest with you, sometimes there is not intent. It's just wanting to do something, but yet that's intent. The other is capability. This is really the ability to successfully breach, right? The ability to really try to achieve that ultimate goal of what was driven by the intent. So the big thing that you see here, and I really want to make sure of this, is recon. There's no different than anything we see today, any type of military action with the armies around the world, things of that nature. Everybody needs to recon. Bad guys today who knock off stores or rob stores, they're breaking and entering. They had intent, right? Financially, there was an intent there. But what they really did was they had reconnaissance. They scoped it out. They were looking for it. But here's an important piece where threat hunting becomes very valuable is understanding, is there a capability? Is someone shaking or rattling your doorknob? The third most important is opportunity, and this is timing. Based on that recon, they're establishing baseline, right? We're trying to figure out the heartbeat of a client and really what time of that. And look, it's supposed to be very clear here. The adversaries are much like yourselves. They take vacation, they enjoy time off, they even take time off on the holidays. So, but there's timing. Timing is important. If you noticed around phishing, where phishing starts to increase, which we've seen here lately, almost a 500% increase is due to opportunity. That opportunity is around COVID-19, people staying at home, working from home, healthcare issues around how do I deal with that? More buying on mobile through the cloud, things of that nature. There's opportunity. Opportunity right now exists more now than ever in the last few months because of the situations we're at today. And then lastly is the threat. This is the potential threat to your organization. So what do I mean by threat to your organization? Threats can be in many ways, right? Loss of dollars, loss of information. But I think the one that a lot of people forget about is brand. We know this for a fact that brand reputation can be a major threat to any client. We also know that a threat to your brand, especially in the small business, you're one and done. Typically, you can't recover. Even for the large organizations like Equifax, Target, Home Depot, a lot of these large corporations who were affected adversely due to a potential breach that they had the threat to their brand really hurt them. Equifax, people lost their jobs, their stock went down. Target had huge financial, trust issues to gain back from their community and from their patrons. Home Depot, the same thing. So the threat is really defining what is at risk to your organization. Now, one of the things I want you to walk away before I move to the next slide is don't think that you're not a target. That is something you need to all understand today, why threat hunting is so important, that there's nothing, you feel like there's nothing that nobody wants. That's the worst thing you can think right now. So what is threat hunting? The big thing that we want to focus here on threat hunting is how valuable stuff is in your network. Everybody wants something. Everybody has something that's valuable in their network. And the reason we wouldn't have hacking if there was not the aspect of valuable stuff. And everyone has a different definition of value, right? And everybody has a different definition of what kind of value you put on that stuff. And one of the things I always try to use an analogy here is your home. You have doors on your door, locks on your doors, right? If you didn't have locks on your door, your stuff would be gone. Same concept here in our cybersecurity spaces. We need to have locks. We need to have things. We've now moved to more today than any of having cameras outside because we have a fear. We live and work in a fear environment. So this is where one of the things that threat hunting is very much around is trying to reduce or quell that fear. Now, the next question a lot of people says, look, I have defenses. I've got a firewall. I got antivirus. I've got IDS. I've got all these cool tools. I even got cyber insurance. So, but the thing is that cyber insurance is much like car insurance. You have to have it because what? If I get an accident, I'm going to go get it fixed. If someone doesn't have insurance, my insurance covers for that. But one of my point here is that even though you may have the best laid out defenses, and we know that a lot of companies thought they had the best laid out defense, there's no silver bullet. It does not exist. It requires lots of things, defense in depth, trust but verify, zero trust, all these things. But at the end of the day, it's people, process, and technology. All those things working hand in hand. And so that's important, a part of threat hunting. So it's important to do that. Now, I haven't been hacked yet. We touched on this around the intent. We touched on this on the capability, and we touched on this around the opportunity and the threat. If you walk away from here today thinking still that I haven't been hacked, it's not if but when. I'm telling you right now, with the opportunity that exists in the world that we're being dealt with, right? The idea here is that we have a bigger opportunity now more than ever around dealing with the fact that we have stuff that people want. And that stuff ultimately is you. think about this for a minute. If you right now clicked on a phishing email at home and your identity was then compromised, the issue you have right now is what? How do I get my identity back? Someone out and bought a car in your name. How do I get that back? Or now am I responsible for that? On average, it takes 7 years for someone to regain their identity once it's been lost. More now than ever, people are looking for what? Stuff. So you yourself are stuff when it comes to the dark net. So hopefully you think through that today. So let's talk about why hunt for threats. We touched on a lot of those in that previous slide. But I think a lot of these right now is that we really need to focus on is the breaches by the numbers, right? 68% of the breaches have taken months or longer to discover. It's really, really important to understand here that, the life cycle of an attack is on average over 300 days. That's from the malicious attack taking place to the commitment of the breach. Now, what does that really mean? It goes back to the recon, right? It goes back to the intent and the capability. These guys are running a business. They're going to invest in trying to take your money to pay for that and make something off of it. So it's important to note why threat hunting becomes really an important piece here going forward is the fact that, look, they want to get into this. They want to get into what your money you have. Now, the great thing today, more than ever for adversaries, is what? Is the cloud, is the internet. There's over 4,800 websites a month that are being compromised due to cross scripting to form jacking. I mean, these are all kinds of things that are taking place today as it relates to problems around hunts, around threats, which means that 80% of the malware is targeted and tailored to industries, right? So we know this for a fact when we look at our threat intelligence that we gather today as part of our Neighborhood Watch program. We're seeing malware, move and change across vectors, move and change across industries because why? It's a business. We're seeing guys right now creating these types of malware for the sole purpose of testing it, and they use honeypots as a way to validate. No different than we go out and do product development where we dev, we test, and we now productize. Same concept here is that they're building something to make their widget better than the next guy's widget to do what? Sell it. For a reason, right? For money so that people can make money. So the next piece here is why threat is time to discover. Threat hunting is an important piece to not just rely on technology. Too often we are sold this concept or idea that if I go out and buy a firewall, I go out and buy antivirus, I go out and buy IDS, I buy app control ID, that hey, you know what? It's going to prevent, so I don't need to do anything. I'm going to rely on the technology. Wrong answer. Technology is designed to be flawless. I mean, it has a flaw because why? We're constantly iterating technology. We're constantly changing technology. So it's important to put in another layer, which is hunting, the ability to hunt for those threats. Because of this discover time of an average of 100 days, you need someone to just not rely on the technology, but rely on technology plus the ability to hunt within your environment, and there's tools used to do that. So what is the life cycle of a threat? It's really important to note here that the threats here are really target defined, right? Then ultimately objective met. So I've had a lot of people tell me, and I've got some friends in the space that do some, let's just say malicious type stuff, but to know what to do is combat that is to understand that world. But they have to be right once, and they will tell you that all I got to do is be right one time. You got to be right all the time. I disagree a little bit. A win is a win. Anytime that you can get in there and stop that adversary, it is a win for who? You. You stop them. The other piece here is that a win is that you continue to remediate and consistently, harden your environment, because that's still a win is a win. The whole idea here is that what we want to do is there's this bogus argument, or defund this bogus argument that defenders have to win every time. This is where threat hunting can really help you, define this and really make sure that, hey, the idea here is that there's this target defined, this objective is met. So really the idea here is this threat life cycle. So what do you need to start hunting? And this is where we really want to dive into. Where do we want to start hunting? In the architecture, right? We really want to start around the planning, right? We want to establishing the upkeep of the system with the security in mind. We want to get visibility. Get your data from your assets. Do you even know how many assets that you have on your network? Do you even know how many are actually working and talking to the internet? There's a good product out there that I use called Psycognito, and it's a really cool product because it gives you a recon. It will take your domain name, and actually you'd be surprised of how much data is actually accessing the internet and sharing to the internet. These are things of nature. Now, the other piece is passive defense, right? This is where you really are using insight against things like, against threats. And, the other thing is consistent human interaction. Those are all pieces there. The other piece here is this active defense. This is the process. This is the analyst. These are the monitoring and respond to the learning of your adversaries and internal network. This is understanding your world, right? No better person to understand your environment is you. So really the aspect of this active defense, this is your constant looking. This is where you buy things from your MSSP and really focus on them of buying, MDR type services or EPR services. Those are all pieces of that. The other piece here is the intelligence. Just like the bad guy, you need to collect intelligence. Just like they are reconning, you need to recon your target vertical, your industry. Find out what the battleships are really forming on what horizon. It's really important to understand that there is, producing the right intelligence really helps you as a group to understand how I need to go about this. The last and most important is offense. This is where the countermeasures that you've put in place really, really help. But look, this goes back to the point of relying on technology. You cannot strictly rely on technology. You really need to have your own offense. A good offense always defeats what? A good defense, and vice versa, right? So it's important to note that. So how do I hunt? We talked about the need for threat hunting. We talked about what is a threat. We talked about the analysis aspect of this, the monitoring aspect of this. So let's talk about how to hunt. You really need a dedicated staff. You cannot expect your IT support person or your security infosec guy to be that hunter. It is a dedicated staff, or he or she can focus on the analysis, using tools to look at the analytics. This will help you establish that baseline of what's going on, because it's important to have that knowledge of your baseline of your network. It is no different than you going to a doctor and getting a physical once a year, because what? That is giving you a baseline of your health. Same here. So the other is analysis. You want to analyze this information. You want to use your threat intelligence to take things into perspective, like indicators of compromise, like tools like Deep Instinct, like tools like Recorded Future. These are tools out there that can help you with the intelligence, even VirusTotal, taking information, putting it in there and understanding what am I really looking at and what am I really hunting for, and really how do I ideally focus on what is the true threats. Because you've already got all this noise and this alert that's being generated by your SIEM based on your firewall and things of that nature. But look, curious people with exposure to security technologies, those are the type of people who can really hunt, because they really love to get into the grit, look for things, look for those little nuggets. The old saying of looking for needle in a haystack, that's what you want your hunters to do. You want them to look for that needle in the haystack. You want to look for that anomaly that may have been taking place. You want to look for somebody making a change in your network that you don't know, that maybe that looks like somebody that Joe did. You want that, looking for that. This is what a hunter can do. The value of a hunter can ultimately, potentially, diffuse the lack that the technology couldn't find, that the person and the people and the process combined with the technology gives you the right to find something that maybe no one else could have. So let's summarize based on the information, and we'll open up for Q&A. Threat landscape. Look, it is evolving. It is changing rapidly. We know this. We've seen it. Checkpoint had a great report that came out recently around the increase of phishing and things of that nature. We're still seeing nation-state attacks. We're seeing organized crime, cyber terrorism. Phishing is at an all-time high. Ransomware, big money. Just recently, there was a hospital that paid out some ransomware. We've seen people pay out. Even local law enforcement are subject now to cyber terrorism. It is here to stay. It's not going to go away. If anything, it's going to increase, because now more than ever, we're working from our homes and our virtual environment, much like most of you are today. And you're using this is probably a bad term, but dirty internet, because the internet is best effort internet. I guarantee most of you right now, if you looked at yourself in a mirror and said, when's the last time my firmware was updated on my DSL or cable modem? It was probably the last time when it was installed. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Data is your asset. Look, your data is your asset. It's important to know that you may not think you have something no one wants, but at the end of the day, your employees are assets. That's something you need to think about. It's really understand the value, the location, and the movement of that data, and the storage of that data. Who has access to that data? Who's on a need to know about your data? Adhere to the right compliance framework, whether it's PCI, whether it's GBLA, whether it's NIST or whatever, what unified compliance framework you have, you'll use it. It will help you understand how to protect and classify your data so that you need to have the right, defense in depth, zero trust, whatever the case is, your data is your asset. And lastly is engage a service provider. Look, it's important to note here that you can't do this alone. There's too many people out there looking for a job, and there's not enough jobs or not enough people for those jobs. So you've got to work with an MSP, work with them, work with the service provider to help you share this information. Maybe they can come in and help hunt. Collaboration is an important piece as it relates to the cybersecurity world. Hence why we're here where we're at. The one thing that we're doing a lot better over the last 4 years is sharing of intelligence. It's important to see that. So I'm going to open up for Q&A and see if there's any questions on our board. So I'm going to stop my sharing here and then kind of ask questions and see what do we have as far as questions from our group today. So Orlando, thanks for joining. Hi, we were just beginning to build our threat hunting position team. What would be the best advice you can provide for the first steps? That's great. Great question. I think the first step right now is once you get your dedicated staff in place, help them get visibility, help them get the right tools. One of the tools that we use a lot is SentinelOne. That's a great tool for our team because it gives us that endpoint visibility. Get them some training on those tools, get them access to the right SIEM that has the right analytics so they can actually look at that. Because look, you don't want them scouring through a bunch of logs and things of nature. You want them to have something that's been, maybe alert framework that actually they could go use and they can actually look at things associated with your environment. But the big thing there is I would get the visibility. It's an important piece to actually do that. So any other questions out there? That was a great question. Thanks, Orlando. We got another one in here from Nita, if I say that right. What was the most prolific threat actor you hunted? That's a great one. I actually, the one that most was just recently. We and my team actually dealt with one that didn't really have a makeup of what they were trying to do. Most things are driven by financial, right? What we found with this hunter this actor was it was destruction. And yes, most of the time, there's an aspect of that being intent, but there was the intent. There was nothing but destruction and deletion. We never ever got a ransomware email saying I've got it. Here's a proof of that data. All we got was constant brute force attacks, constant trying to break in. And once they were able to get in, and we were able to then stop them, it was all about just deleting, encrypting the data, and then deleting the data. That was probably my most prolific one that I've dealt with. It was it just didn't make any sense. But because most of what we're dealing with adversaries right now is financially driven. But again, there's that insider threat issue too of that people leave companies and they do things of nature, because that's the other thing I really kind of forgot about talking about is this issue associated with this issue of insider threat, right? We have employees leaving more and more today in the cybersecurity world, and they're going to companies every 18 months. You see CISO changes and things of that nature. I guarantee that no one on this call or any in the industry right now, maybe a lot, right? Maybe some are moving that way, are putting in place to look at data leaving. One of the things we did for a client recently, and I think I touched on this earlier, is about putting an alert profile of data being exfiltrated out to the cloud, to various things like Dropbox, to Box and various other cloud storage platforms. Because why? People are putting their stuff out there in the cloud so that when they leave, they feel that's their IP and they want to take it with them. And a lot of times, companies are not looking for that because it's a slow drain. So that's something to think about. Great question. Another question from Kahir. What were some of the threat hunt tools that you recommended for small organizations? Well, actually, we just touched on SentinelOne's a great one. The other threat hunting tool is Cisco AMP. So you're going to see a common thread here, right? What you're seeing here is mostly endpoint detection. So I'm going to put a quote out here for you. The war will be won at the endpoint. I really truly believe that we need to be hunting at the endpoint. Why? Because that is the point. That is the point of the spear, because we're seeing more and more people where they take their laptop, their iPad, their phone, they're going to a Starbucks, they're going to a hotel. That is where we need to be hunting. We need to be looking at the application stack that they're downloading. Shadow IT is a big, big thing we still have today, where people can grab things and download them, and we're not protecting those. And we're no one looking at the application. There's things that are built into those applications, especially freeware, that ultimately can turn your device into a botnet. These are things that we have to think about. So great question. Another for Kerr, is there an example of an organization who successfully used cyber threat hunting to disrupt an attack? Right here. I can guarantee you right now, we have done this and used this as a way. We do incident response today for a lot of our clients. We've seen it work in action. We use it for our own house. CrowdStrike is a great example of seeing that. There's a lot of organizations out beyond just Newspire that are using threat hunting to disrupt an attack. And why is that? Because we're not just relying on technology. We're also using technology to hunt. It's no different than going out there and looking at things. But the problem is that when you combine people, process, technology, and the ability to go out and hunt with using that, you have a better chance of disrupting an attack that's taking place, because maybe it's something was overshadowed by the SIEM, it was overlooked by the firewall because it's only what we put in there. But that's a great question from disruption. Another question here from, I can't pronounce your name, so I'm not going to do it. Is some people say there's no entry-level job in cybersecurity. Is it correct or not? What do you think, so that the recent graduates like me can get in? I disagree with that. I think there is entry-level jobs. And the best entry-level job right now is an analyst, an agent. Get into the SOC. There's a lot of companies right now who are teaching people to come in and understand their ways they're doing. We're one of those. We have our own academy. IBM has it. BT Telecom has these. There's a lot of companies right now who are encouraging people who have a cybersecurity degree or they've got some kind of security background to come in and learn about it. Internships, where you see a lot of what we call no-cost internships to get into the SOC, because we want to teach people. The more people we can get, and really the other piece is people coming out of the military. Those are the best that you can get right now, because they've been in the DoD space for a long time. So that's a great question. I disagree with it. I think it is getting into the SOC, working, because then you can find out, where do I want to go? Do I want to become an engineer? Do I want to go focus on hunting? Things of that nature. That's a great question as it relates to career advancement associated and where I want to go. I'll tell you what, the best CISOs that I have ever dealt with are the ones who come out of the SOC, who have actually worked as an engineer, or they've been in the SOC as an analyst, and they understand, they've been in those shoes. So get into a SOC. Even if it's as an agent or a low-level analyst, that's where I would go. It's a great question. We've got a couple minutes left. Any other questions? Is the video playing in your end, guys? I hope it's playing. It says it's playing. It's live. All right. Well, look, if there's no other questions, I want to thank everybody for joining us today at Black Hat. I really enjoyed the questions. They were really great. So thank you for those who actually provided those. I hope they were beneficial. I hope this presentation was beneficial for you. Enjoy the virtual Black Hat, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Thanks, and have a great day.